Welcome back, my fellow patriots, to the next Save Our Republic discussion. Today I'm going to focus on the founding first principle of limited government. This is derivative of the Declaration of Independence, and I want you to listen carefully. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers for the consent of the governed. Now, we've already talked about the founding first principle of the rule of law. We've also talked about the founding first principle of unalienable rights. Rule of law is the law applies to everybody. Unalienable rights is that you have rights that are given to you by God, can't be taken away from government, that they're born within you and is part of your human nature. And then we've also talked about the social compact, and that is people relinquishing some of their rights to a government to protect all of their rights so they can be secure in society. And that idea of the social compact can lead us in one of two directions. The first direction is embodied by the philosophy of Thomas Hobbes. Now, Thomas Hobbes was an English philosopher who wrote in the 1500s. He was trying to justify the rule of the king at the time, and basically said, since we consent to and agree to have a government, that the government can do no wrong. You have consented to its governing over you. And that leads to tyranny, in essence, right? Perhaps a great example of this would be the revolutionary government of France, in which they ended up executing tens of thousands of people to support the revolution, to support their ideals. And it was a Republican government. Those people were elected by the people of France, and they went crazy. And their argument was that they were representing the people. The people had consented to their rule, and therefore they could do no wrong. And there's all kinds of literature, documentation that and philosophy and statements and speeches that they gave that supports that is exactly what they believed. And there are many other examples. Soviet Union, Communist China, the theocrats of Iran, they all try to justify themselves having unlimited power by having the consent of the people to their rule, and therefore they can do no wrong. The other option is exemplified by the writings of John Locke. And John Locke wrote a very important treatise called The Two Treatises of Government. And he argued that no, the government is not unlimited because you give up some of your rights to protect the others, and you're consenting to the government for that purpose. That's the only purpose that government can really act for or towards. And therefore, the government has limits to what it can do. If it's supposed to secure these rights, which is Declaration of Independence says, then it is limited to that authority. And James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, the entire founding generation, this is what they believed. And Thomas Paine really wrote it extremely well in connection to kind of explain this, that the founders were very skeptical of government. They understood that it was a necessary evil, but that we should really rein it in. And I'm going to read from Common Sense, which Thomas Paine wrote in 1776, which is really kind of the closing argument for the American Revolution. And he wrote this: government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. In its worst state, an intolerable one. Government, like dress, is the badge of lost innocence. The palaces of the kings are built on the ruins of the bowers of paradise. For were the impulses of conscience clear, uniform, and irresistibly obeyed, man would need no other lawgiver. But that not being the case, he finds it necessary to surrender part of his property to furnish means for the protection of the rest. When he means property, he means rights. And here then is the origin and rise of government, namely, a mode rendered necessary by the inability of moral virtue to govern the world. Here too is the design and end of government, that is, freedom and security. So that idea is expressed in the Declaration of Independence and underlies our Constitution. I'm going to explain why that is true in future episodes, but if you think about the fact that our federal government has limited enumerated powers, it means the only powers it has are the ones that are written out, and that the state governments have other power and that both are limited by the constitutions which govern each of them, that they are very much governments of limited power. And I would just say that in these tumultuous times, there seems to be a lot of people that really think that the government should be able to do whatever it wants. Not only do you have to beg the government for your privileges instead of rights, but that the government really can do whatever it wants as long as the government follows the procedures. In other words, they pass a law, the legislature passes a law, it's signed by the executive, then all bets are off. And that is absolutely the opposite of what America was founded on. And it's that loss of recognition of limited government is a fundamental problem with our existing society. And it is driving us over the cliff in connection with protecting our freedoms and liberties. So it's very important that we understand that, so that when we see a government overreaching beyond its constitutional bounds, that we can put up safeguards to stop it. I'm looking forward to talking to you tomorrow. God bless you, and God bless America.